there, I'm Clark. I'm the garage artist. I have in my hands a piece of sculpture that you too are going to make now because you just received the kit that has all the parts you need to make that piece of art. It has all the wood, the hardware, the tools, even a bottle of glue. You can make it all right there on your own workbench. So I'm going to move the camera and focus on this spot right here on my bench and leave it there. And we'll do kind of a stop action. I'll narrate each step. And in a matter of no time, we'll have a brand new piece of art. Or you will. Thanks for buying my kit. Let's get started. I'll be doing a voice-over narration for the rest of this video, except at the end when it's complete. This is like opening up a cool do-it-yourself model airplane Christmas present from way back, before everything was electronic. Look at all these fun parts. You'll want to find a place you can screw or clamp the plywood base to. It needs to be solidly connected because you'll be pulling and pushing on it. The first step is to screw in the throwaway rods. The throwaway rods are the ones without the barrel nuts on them. I'll use a vice grip to get them in place. Maybe your hands are stronger. Then start stacking in the order you want them to be. The second part of the base goes first. Then start adding the pieces. Since each piece has 4 angles, the shape of the artwork is determined by how you stack each one. You can make it turn any which way. It doesn't have to be flat at the top, like the one I showed you at the beginning. As you build up the pieces, you bend the throwaway rod. It can be one big curve going sideways. It doesn't even have to be self-supporting. Just screw it to a heavy base and do whatever you want with it. Order 2 kits and make a shape like this. There's no end to the fun. For this particular piece of work, we have twice as many cherry pieces as walnut, so you will do 2 cherry pieces for each of every 1 walnut piece. Let your inner artist rule your actions. You can order any color pieces you like. Make up your own. Future editions would be alternating maple and walnut, so you get that dark light contrast, as in this piece here. Keep bending the rod as necessary to conform to the shape. I had to use the wrench at the end to bend the rods. They were too short. Now here at the very end, it looks like the rod is too short, but we'll pick up at least 1/2 inch as each piece is compressed when we start gluing and screwing, so we should be okay. I'm drawing these lines on it to make sure that when assembly time comes, each piece is oriented in the right direction. I also number the pieces in case they get jumbled up somehow. The lines I'm drawing down each side are just in case I feel like trimming them off with my chop saw in order to add to the curvaceous shape. But eventually I decided against that, and I'll do any trimming after it's all glued together. Now let's take the pieces off, lay them down in order here to the side. Sorry the camera doesn't show my neat stack of pieces. Next step is to remove the throwaway rods. The reason they are throwaway is because the barrel nuts cannot be used on anything but straight rods. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. We then screw the second set of straight rods back into the holes. Make sure they are very secure. The holes are about 1.5 inches deep. Screw the rods in tight because they'll have to withstand the pressure of being pulled by the barrel nuts. You'll notice that I've threaded the barrel nuts onto the bottom of the straight rods and left just enough space for you to start the first glued piece. Screw them in securely. I put a little oil on the nuts to make sure they can be turned without the wrench. but as you'll see, that's not always the case. They are stainless steel, so they're harder than the cheapo ones. Now we'll screw on the ceremonial first piece using the special steel plate and the washers and nuts. You could get away without the washers, which are also stainless steel, but it helps in keeping the bottom of the barrel nut from getting deformed as you're screwing down the pieces onto the steel plate. Remember, do not screw these down too hard or you'll pull it right out of that wood. Just tight enough, not too tight. Doesn't hurt to clean up the glue, but of course the sander would take care of all that stuff at the end. Now we'll do one more glue and screw with two normal pieces. Not too much to say about this. Do the same thing 20 or 30 times, you get real good at it. Remember, don't screw those too tight. If you pull that threaded rod out of the base piece, that's trouble. Just tight enough. There we go, one more piece. Then we go super speed. Not too tight, just tight enough. Sometimes I need to use the yellow clamps to keep the pieces from sliding out of alignment. And you'll notice that I bend the rods in the direction the wood wants to take, so you're always tightening the nuts at a right angle to the steel plate. Sometimes the nuts just don't want to spin and you need to use the wrench. The wrench is color-coded with an off and on side. Okay, if you want to fast forward 2 minutes, go ahead. Once you have a couple of curves in those rods, then you can start tightening it because you can't pull it through. Who's this guy with the black sweatshirt anyway? Alright, we're getting down to the last couple pieces. We want to make sure the top is fairly flat. So it's okay to make adjustments. Turn a piece one way or the other. And looks like that left-handed rod is not going to quite make it, so I had to extend it by sawing off the last bit, screwing the extra barrel nut onto it, then adding another small piece of threaded rod so we could finish it off. Okay, here comes the crown. Notice how the next to last piece has a small overhang on the underside. This is by design, because when I clamp the angle iron to the neck, the overhang keeps it from sliding when we clamp the last piece on. See how that angle iron fits nicely underneath that second to last piece? The yellow clamp comes in handy as a temporary holder. At first I thought the plywood would work, but it really needs the piece of metal I've included in the kit. Ta-da! Let it dry overnight. Come back the next day. Unclamping the last piece is always fun. Now, it still doesn't look like much, but remember, eventually it's going to look like this. And now back to the live narration with Clark. Okay, we're finished with the construction part. All glued and screwed together, everything nice and tight. Lovely piece of art you've made there, isn't it? But it's not done yet. It had to be sanded somehow. So you can take it to a local shop. Maybe somebody will sand it for you. Or you can go buy a couple of tools if you don't have them already. An angle grinder with this big old sanding head on it. And for finishing purposes, an orbital sander like this. I can guarantee you that this 60 grit blade will not take these edges off in any kind of timely fashion, so don't even try. It might polish the glue, and that's about it. And once you get to that point, you might want to buy a base. This is just a piece of 1-inch aluminum, some holes drilled in it. I actually sanded it with the 60 grit sandpaper on this, come up with this nice finish. I'm going to take it to the powder coater. That's why it's got plastic on it right now. Other than that, we're finished. I'm glad you bought the kit. Should have bought two. You can still buy another one. Give one to a friend. Thanks for watching. See you next time.